Okay, as is so often the case when things are going really, really well mechanically, fitting things to the bike as they did with my Ventura L bracket fitment, and then getting the base plate onto that and getting that whole thing set up and onto the bike, super, super simple. Couldn't be easier. I thought to myself, wait a minute, I don't need the Ventura rack. I've got a universal base plate which should run onto the Honda Carrier, and I've got the Coocase. So let's see whether we can fit those and basically have a top box solution for 250 bucks that will bolt straight onto the bike and require no extra investment. Obviously, if you're only using that particular top box. Now, the reason I think that's a pretty cool thing to look into is because that's cheap. The Honda OEM top box solution is, I think, almost $1,000. Has a $300 base plate. I think the top box is $700 as well. So it's quite expensive. And for a lot of the other systems I saw, not only did you need some kind of adapter plate, but the top boxes were more expensive as well. The Coocase, in my experience, have had a really good experience with them. They've been waterproof, they've been good quality. I really like them. And for 250 bucks, when I saw this advertised online, I ordered it through Moto Hub straight away because I was like, damn, that is a really good deal for a 48 litre top box, and it has the silver on it, which kind of matches. It's not a perfect match to the white on the Honda, but it kind of matches the Honda overall. So it ticked all the boxes for me. The problem is, what was very, very simple as far as the installation onto the Ventura little special mounting brackets that go into the L brackets for these kind of universal top boxes was a lot more difficult with the mounting plate on the back of the Honda. I'm going to take the top box off and have a bit more of a talk through it. As far as what comes with the Coocase for the fitment of this universal base plate, adapter, whatever you want to call it, you get these kind of square washers which fit into the lattice work of this plate, and you get some smaller, I think they're M6 bolts, and then you get some washers and some nylock. But compared to getting it onto the Ventura adapter system, which was like a minute's work, with this it's been quite difficult because getting those bolts through is hard. I've now got 3 of those bolts all done. However, the last one, I actually stripped the bolt trying to tighten it up, and I think I did over tighten it, but it is quite tight. Okay, so we've got the universal mounting plate here. As you can see, it's got these big square washers that fit in these little pieces here. It uses a smaller bolt, I think, because basically it gives you a bit more wiggle room as to getting everything aligned and in place. That's an M6 bolt with a hex head. It's got a nylock nut, and it's got a kind of extra deep washer down on the bottom. These 2 mounting points here worked really well. However, it has pushed the top box this way on the bike, which is using up a little bit of that pillion space, which may impact where the pillion is. The bolt's here, and the other one is over here. I'll go to the other side and give you a look in a second. Those are a very, very tight fit. You can see it's bending the plastic a little bit. It's quite a heavy duty plastic, so it probably shouldn't be an issue, but you want it really well tightened down so there's no movement at all, which could cause any issues. And so here you can see it doesn't line up well enough that it's a really easy fitment. So you are going to need to really push that bolt through and kind of, you know, I'm not saying really force it, but you're going to have to finagle it into place. And if you don't like using a bit of extra force, then this may not be the one for you. But I did have all 4 in before, no issues, and I'm just going to replace that bolt that I bent and destroyed some of the thread, and I'm going to replace this one because I've chunked up the top on it. We'll get another one in just to replace it, just in case. Okay, let's get this fitted. I've got basically a replacement bolt. I did find my Loctite, not sure that's quite the right one, but it will do. Somewhat worryingly, it was actually in a betadine, one of those little gargling cups upside down. It's definitely not betadine, hopefully no one used that. So we've got the Loctite, we've got the big square washer, which goes up the top. And basically, we just want to, unfortunately, kind of run that bolt through. It is quite tight. I've got a new nylock because the one that was on the damaged bolt, I don't think it's a good idea to reuse that for the obvious reasons. And I've got the washers that were provided by Coocase. These are a really thick washer, which obviously gives them more strength, which is ideal, because I wouldn't have minded a larger diameter washer, but still thick for this application, because the holes in the Honda Carrier are a little bit larger than the bolts, and just to make it really secure. So anyway, you can't get everything. The trick I found is get your Allen key and just turn the bolt to get the nylock started until obviously it bites into the nylock. Yeah, essentially speaking, the reason there are problems here is because it's such a tight application that you need to be careful not to be over tightening this, because it kind of binds up a little bit as it gets tight. And because it's coming down on plastic, it's actually quite difficult to tell when it's tight. And it's further complicated by the fact that this bolt is a little bit longer than the stock. Still doesn't look tight. I can still see a bit of a gap. Seems rock solid. Gonna leave it for the obvious reasons, because messing around with it last time was a mistake. And you can definitely overdo things. Last time I did this, I was doing it with a socket instead of a spanner on the bottom, and it was much easier, so I would recommend doing that as well. Because of the way everything's deeply kind of recessed into the Honda Carrier, it just makes this whole job annoying. Not gonna lie. Does at times make me wish I'd just bought the Honda topbox, but then at the same time, I don't really want to spend the extra 750 bucks if I can get away with it. Okay, I went inside, I got my socket with the 10mm, just makes this job way easier. Looks alright. Tighten up a little. Can't tighten that one up because my socket's not deep enough. But using the stock bolts, which are a little bit shorter, shouldn't be a problem. Why do I say that? Because I know. I did the other side, and no issues at all. Okay, we got there in the end. It's bolted on. I've got Loctite on 3 of the bolts. I'm going to be keeping a very, very close eye on this. I'm not going to be putting the plate over the top of the bolts to hide them away. Well, I guess I will, but I'm just going to clip it in place. I'm not going to screw it in place, and then I'm just going to keep a very close eye on this. I mean, it's super solid, but it's quite clear for this application that it's not a perfect fit. You are really kind of forcing it into place. You have to be careful not to cross-thread your bolts, and not even cross-thread them, just basically over-tighten those bolts, damage the bolts, damage the nuts, all that kind of stuff. I don't think there's anything wrong with the kit. I just think the clearances are so tight that it's not the best installation, and because of the kind of limitation of how you can mount it, you can't actually move this mounting plate around. There's only, from what I can see, one option that's going to actually work. Yeah, one option that's going to line up to the holes. So you do need to keep that in mind. I think if you're the kind of person who really needs a top box for $250, you can't spend more, you're not going to have a real big issue with this. Obviously you don't need much in the way of tools. 5mm hex, not the 6mm, and a 10mm socket. And with their standard bolts, you might need a slightly deeper socket. Mine's just borderline, or a spanner, but getting the spanner up in there is quite difficult, so keep that in mind as well. Okay, so after all that effort of putting the Coocase 48 litre top box on the Honda rack itself, which I thought was a really cool idea simply because it means you don't need anything else. You're just getting a $250 top box with an included universal mounting plate that goes straight onto the Honda carrier. All the bolts are provided. It's just bolted on, finicky, but it goes on. However, now putting the top box back on the rack once everything's fitted up, the obvious issue is that while the rack probably overhangs the back of the pillion seat by an inch, the top box itself is then kind of offset back off that rack a significant amount. I reckon you're losing about 40% of the pillion seat to that top box, which is a no-go, I'd say. We will give it a try, but I'm gonna have to put the Ventura L brackets back on, run the adapter feet for the universal mounting plate. That's not a drama, but it will move the top box further off the back of the bike. And annoyingly, if you're a 2-up rider and you're doing lots of 2-up riding, this top box solution won't work straight on the bike, but it will, I would guess, work with the Ventura rack system. If you're a solo rider, you shouldn't have any issues because you're not going to be worried about there being anyone on the back. And as a result, I don't think you'd be worried about the fact that it's coming across your pillion seat, because obviously that centralizes the weight. But for me, no good. So yeah, a little bit disappointing, but there you go. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll do a more in-depth video of the top box itself, as far as like a review of the top box and how it is with the pillion on the back. That will be in a week or two once we've spent a bit of time on the bike actually using it. We've put it through its paces, we've put some stuff in it, all that kind of stuff. I do have some shad panniers coming and some pannier mounts with the 3P mount system. Very excited about that. They're hard panniers because we're mainly thinking about touring. However, with the shad system, you can actually fit their soft bags, or I think they might be semi-rigid, but you get a good bit of flexibility there. I think they'll suit the style of the bike. I've got my quick shifter, which I'm really excited to fit. Hopefully that'll be an easy one. I've got heated grips, which is always a little bit of a more messy job, a little bit more annoying, and some bark busters to go on at the same time. So that'll be a twofer as getting those two things on. Yeah, so lots and lots of stuff that I'm working on with this bike at the moment. And yeah, just stay tuned.